Book 8 of the Odyssey is called A Day for Songs and Contests. At first, it may seem like a pause in the action. Odysseus has been welcomed into the palace of King Alcinous and Queen Arete. This is the land of the Phaeacians, where life is well ordered and everyone is safe and happy. Odysseus is well taken care of and treated as an honored guest. The danger of Odysseus's journey feels, for a moment, far away. But something dramatic is about to happen. In this chapter, Odysseus will hear stories about the Trojan War, stories of battles and heroes, stories about himself, and no one in the room knows who he is. This creates a powerful kind of tension. The audience, that's us, knows Odysseus's identity. We know what he has lived through. We understand the weight of these stories. But the characters around him do not. For them, this is entertainment. Amidst the feasting and merriment, a bard is singing. Odysseus is listening. He weeps. He hides his face. He struggles to contain his emotions. Others notice, but they don't understand. As we read Book 8, we'll pay close attention to this gap in knowledge, this distance between what we know and what the characters do not. We'll also ask what makes Odysseus respond so strongly to these stories. And what do those reactions reveal about who he is as the hero of these stories, and as a person, a man? First, before we speculate about his psychology too much, let's establish what actually takes place in this chapter with an objective plot summary. King Alcinous calls an assembly of the Phaeacians and announces that they will provide Odysseus with safe passage home. A ship is prepared, and the people gather to honor their guest. Athena disguises herself as Alcinous's herald and spreads the word, getting everyone excited to learn more about the mysterious stranger. A feast is held in the palace, and a bard named Demodocus is called to sing. His first song tells of a quarrel between Odysseus and Achilles during the Trojan War. As the bard sings, Odysseus begins to weep quietly, hiding his face so that the others will not see. The king notices his reaction, but does not yet understand the reason. After the meal, the Phaeacians hold athletic games in Odysseus's honor. Young men compete in various physical challenges. At first, Odysseus declines to participate, but one of the young competitors insults him, suggesting that he is not truly an athlete. In response, Odysseus rises and demonstrates his strength by throwing a discus farther than any of the others. King Alcinous puts the unpleasantness to rest and ensures that Odysseus is treated with generosity and honor. The games conclude with an impressive demonstration of the Phaeacians dancing and presentation of gifts to Odysseus. The bard sings again, this time telling a story about the gods Ares and Aphrodite and how they were caught in a clever trap. Odysseus listens without distress and even seems to enjoy this story. The group returns to the palace for another feast. Finally, the bard sings once more, on request by Odysseus, recounting the story of the Trojan horse and the fall of Troy. Once more, Odysseus is overcome with emotion and weeps. This time, King Alcinous observes him more closely and realizes that his guest is deeply affected by these stories. He decides to ask Odysseus directly who he is, bringing our story to a turning point. Now that we've traced the events of the chapter, we can look more closely at one of the key literary techniques at work here, dramatic irony. Dramatic irony occurs when the audience knows something that the characters do not. In Book 8, this is the central tension of the scenes. We know who Odysseus is. We know that he fought bravely and successfully in the Trojan War. We know the hardships he has endured, losing his comrades, his many years of loneliness. We understand why these stories matter to him, but the Phaeacians do not. For them, the bard's songs are entertainment, stories of distant events, heroic deeds, famous names. Let's hear the one about Achilles. Oh yes, that's a good one. They listen with interest. Odysseus listens with pain. This difference in knowledge creates a powerful and satisfying effect. When the bard sings about the Trojan War, we have this secret understanding why Odysseus weeps. When his name is mentioned, we feel the tension of the moment. The value of the scene depends on our having that special knowledge. And the gap between what we appreciate is going on and what the characters do not. As the chapter continues, that gap begins to narrow. Odysseus shows himself to be clearly skilled and powerful at the games. He refuses to accept being disrespected by the youths, but also makes it clear that he has moved beyond that limited sense of making a name for yourself. And when the feasting resumes, along with the bard's tales, the king notices Odysseus's reactions. He begins to suspect that there is more to this stranger than he has revealed. When King Alcinous asks him innocent questions, wondering who he might be or what connection he has to these events, we recognize how close they are to the truth. This is dramatic irony. We can feel that something is about to change. The truth is getting closer to the surface. Let's look closely now at Odysseus's reactions to the bard's songs. Twice in the chapter, Homer describes Odysseus weeping as he listens to stories of the Trojan War. And the description is strikingly similar each time. Odysseus covers his face. He tries to hide his tears. He turns away so no one will see him. The king notices his distress. This repetition, almost word for word, is not by accident. We've seen something like this before, when Odysseus sat on the shore of 𝙏𝙤𝙤𝙦, weeping as he longed for home. Homer uses repeated language to emphasize emotional states that define the character. But here, the cause is different. On 𝙏𝙤𝙤, Odysseus was longing for home. In the Phaeacian palace, in this festive setting, he is listening to his own past, to events he lived through, battles he fought, people he knew and cared for. For everyone else in the room, this is just a story. For Odysseus, this is a personal memory. And those memories carry pain. Notice also what he chooses to do. No drama, no spectacle. He does not interrupt the bard. He does not reveal himself. That's me, that's my story, those are my glorious deeds. Instead, he remains silent. He hides his reaction. This is an act of restraint. Now, consider the king's response. The first time Odysseus weeps, King Alcinous notices, but says nothing. He allows the moment to pass. But the second time, when Odysseus is overcome again, the king responds differently. He begins to ask questions. He wants to understand who this man is and why these stories affect him so deeply. Homer lets us feel this shift. The repetition has done its work. What was once a private reaction becomes something that demands explanation. For us as readers, this deepens the tension. We know why Odysseus weeps. The king is beginning to suspect, and the moment of revelation is getting closer. Between these two bookends of songs and Odysseus weeping, there are the games. The Phaeacians hold athletic games in Odysseus's honor, contests of running and wrestling and jumping and throwing. This is a familiar kind of scene in epic poetry. Here, young men compete to demonstrate their strength and speed and skill. They are eager to prove themselves, to stand out and be recognized. This is a world shaped by kleos, the desire for glory and reputation and lasting fame. We've discussed earlier the difference between the Nostos epic and the war epic, or kleos epic. Here, Odysseus is in a different kind of story all his own, Nostos, while the young men of Phaeacia compete for fortune and glory, kleos. So Odysseus is not participating. He's on the sidelines watching, almost like looking at his younger self. But then one of the competitors insults him, suggesting that he does not belong amongst men who compete for honor. This moment provokes a response. Odysseus rises and throws the discus farther than anyone else. Athena is there and makes sure everyone knows it. It is a clear demonstration of strength, a reminder of who he is and what he is capable of. But notice what happens next. He does not continue competing. He does not seek to dominate the games or claim victory after victory. He proves his point and then steps back. Homer is providing a stark contrast. The young men are focused on earning recognition. Odysseus already has it, or at least he once did. Here we see a different kind of relationship to glory. Not the pursuit of kleos, but a distancing from it. It raises an interesting question. Is this the kind of man Odysseus once was? And if so, what has changed? And what of the bard, this blind bard, who maybe reminds us a bit of Homer himself? Let's take a moment to recognize the role of the bard in this chapter. We've already seen the idea of an embedded narrative, a story told within the larger story. In Book 3, Nestor told stories from the past to guide Telemachus. Here the structure is similar, but the effect is different. In Book 8, the stories are performed by a bard in front of an audience. These are not private recollections. They are public performances, and that changes how they function. The bard's songs slow the forward movement of the plot. Instead of continuing Odysseus's journey, the narrative pauses to revisit the past. But this pause isn't a distraction. It's a deepening, a chance to better understand Odysseus. Through these songs, we revisit the Trojan War. And because we're in on Odysseus's secret identity, we experience these stories differently from the Phaeacians. We understand they're not just distant history, but actually something that still has emotional power in the present. And importantly, Odysseus is not just hearing these stories. He is inside them. This creates a layered effect. We are watching a character listen to a story about himself, while the people around him remain unaware that the hero of the story is right there. They've met him. The embedded narrative becomes a kind of a mirror. It reflects Odysseus's past back to him and allows us to see how he responds. We also see what others think of his story. At the same time, it builds anticipation. The more the story circles around Odysseus, the more we expect the truth to be revealed. Now, I don't want to give you the wrong impression and say that's always true for everything the bard says and does. Not all of the bard's songs have the same effect. At one point, he tells this story about the gods Ares and Aphrodite, and that is very different in tone. It's lighter and more playful. It focuses on cleverness rather than war, and Odysseus responds very differently to this story. We'll leave that moment for you to explore more closely in the reader's guide, paying attention to tone, subject, and character response and how they all work together. By the end of Book 8, Odysseus is no longer just a stranger being given kindly charity. He has become the center of attention, even if no one yet knows who he is. Through the bard's songs, his past has been brought into the room. Through his reactions, that past has become visible. And through the king's questions, the truth is about to emerge. This chapter is built on a powerful form of tension, dramatic irony. We know Odysseus's identity. The characters do not. But that knowledge gap is starting to close. At the same time, we see two versions of Odysseus: the hero of the stories, the man of war, of cunning, of great deeds, and the man sitting quietly in the hall listening, remembering, and struggling to contain his emotions. Those two versions are not separate. They are the same person. But in Book 8, we are invited to see the distance between them. The songs remind us of Odysseus's past. His reactions reveal what that past has cost him. And so the chapter brings us to a turning point. Odysseus can no longer remain only a listener. His story is about to become his own again. If you'd like to continue your work with this chapter, our reader's guide will help you go further and learn more. Find the link below. You'll take a closer look at dramatic irony, identifying moments where we understand more than the characters do, and how that shapes our experience as readers. You'll also explore Odysseus's reactions to the bard's songs, asking what do they reveal about his past and how memory shapes his identity. You'll also have the opportunity to think more deeply about the stories within the story, including why different kinds of tales are included and how Odysseus responds to them. The time you spend doing close reading is so valuable. So take your time with these moments. Notice what is repeated, notice what is withheld, and pay attention to what is beginning to change. Because in the next chapter, Odysseus will no longer remain hidden. He will begin to tell his own story.